Good morning, everyone, to the Walk of Love Ministry podcast this morning. It's a cold morning, honey.
It is cold. Oh, it's cold.
It's like, where did spring? And it's like it just happened too fast.
Yeah, that wind is making it feel a lot colder, but
Yeah.
just bundle up.
Yeah. Miss Maxine, when I got out of the car, she said, "Where's your coat?" I said, "Well, I thought about it on my way here. So I don't know. Not used to grabbing it, but we're going to grab it today." We have already opened up in prayer this morning and just given God this time and just to be here, just to honor Him, but to share from our hearts. Just something that means a lot to us. But I'm excited that I have my wonderful, amazing husband with me today, the love of my life. And last week was hard, wasn't it, honey?
Yeah, it was hard, but it was an important step.
Yeah. Those that might not know what last week was for us, I think we just kind of need to do a little recap of what Friday was, and why we're here today, just to thank our community, but to just first give God honor for the opportunity He gave me to serve as mayor of your hometown, my hometown.
Yeah.
And I just want us to kind of just talk about the years. You're in your 7th year now.
Mm-hmm.
Next year will be your 8th year. And just kind of how we got to this point, honey.
Well, first, last Friday morning, we announced that we would not be seeking re-election to the office of mayor next year. You know, the mayor serves 4-year terms, and you can serve 3 consecutive 4-year terms. And as you mentioned, we're in our second term, year 7. And the Lord just said our season in this office is done. So we wanted to be obedient. And so we announced to the department heads first, because they're like family to us. Really, all the city employees are like family. They've stuck by us, and we've asked them to do just so much. And they've just answered the call each and every time. So we announced to the department heads, and then we have a voicemail system that I can pre-record a message, and it goes out to all city employees on their cell phones or their home phones, whichever number's registered. And so we sent that out and then released it to the media. So we will not be seeking re-election to the office of mayor in November of 2026. Now, people think that I'm leaving at the end of this year. No, got another 13 months and 20 days to go on this term, and we're going to finish strong. In fact, we'll work right up till the last minute of the last day of next year, December 31st.
You know, honey, that day when we were in the department head meeting, I was talking about the seasons that we've been in, and when God said your season's up. I remember it like yesterday when, as a state legislator, you started 12 years there, and we felt that. You know what I'm saying? We just knew that God had something else. This one, I feel like, has been the hardest.
Yeah, it's hard. State representative, you're one of 99 votes in the House. So, you can impact a little, but not nearly as much as you do as mayor of a city, because the mayor's in charge. The mayor is CEO of the city. We don't have a city manager or a city administrator. It's what's called a strong mayor government, meaning the mayor's a full-time job, and then it's full-time and then some, as you know. Mm-hmm. It's 100 hours. People look at me like I'm crazy, but it is 100 hours a week, as hard as you can go if you do it right. I was talking to one of our state legislators on Saturday morning, and when I mentioned it's 100 hours a week, he was not surprised. He said, if you do it right, it's 100 hours. Mm-hmm. And so we've just tried to be obedient again, to do what God wanted us to do, but it's just the only way we know.
And honey, that day was a lot of tears from us and the department heads as well, because this has been something we've been praying and just seeking God for a long time. And we know, it's like I was telling the department heads, if God tells us to do something in obedience, we have to follow Him, even though our heart's not there yet.
Yeah, and we did. We've known for a while that we weren't going to seek re-election, but we didn't want to announce it too soon, because we want to make sure we got confirmation and nothing had changed. Because, as we know, things can change. But it was time. Last Friday, it was time. That was the appointed time.
That God gave you.
That God gave me, the appointed time to do it. He really, not only the date, but He told me how He wanted me to do it, the steps. he wanted to follow. He talks to me in phrases. I know he talks to you in stories and paragraphs, and I just value that. But he just gives me phrases because he knows if he gives me the whole paragraph, um, I won't seek him for the rest. So if he gives me a phrase, then I have to seek him for what's next. And so we're looking forward to whatever is next. We just know we had to take this step before we know what the next step is going to be. And I have no idea. When we left the legislature, we didn't know we were going to run for mayor.
No.
Because we announced in 2017 that we were retiring in 2018 from the legislature. But it wasn't until March of 2018 that he told us, okay, it's time. And then he gave us the slogan, the phrase, one city, because our city was so divided. And so one city was sort of our rallying cry.
Let's go there. The one city. I feel like as the city family, it's one city. But have you seen that change, honey, from when we first went in as one city? I felt it, like all of us were on one accord. What do you feel like now?
Well, yeah, I agree with you. We had a season where it was unified, and then we seem to be a little divided right now. And I'm not going to point fingers and blame. A lot of it is coming out of Washington. Those adults need to sit down and be adults and get around the table and talk about what's best for the country, not what's best for themselves or the party. So I'm disappointed, frankly, in all of them, not just one of them, but all of them. They need to get their act together. But yeah, we're allowing that division to creep in, and so we have to hold it together and just pray God will bless us if we stay united.
Well, let's talk about some of the challenges you went through, that you couldn't stop the windstorms and all of that. Let's talk about some of those things that it was hard, and some of we lost some families and the city family members, and just kind of talk about that.
Well, I mentioned city employees. They're just the best people, just the best people. Forgive me, because this weather change is wreaking havoc on my sinuses, but the city employees family are great. And on September 3rd, 2019, our first year, we lost a city employee who was just doing his job. He had just finished mowing grass, and he was blowing the grass off the sidewalk, and a truck ran over him and killed him. Hardest day of my life. Hardest day. But God brought us through. Later that month in September, if you'll remember, Money Magazine named us the #1 best city to live in the United States. It wasn't something we campaigned for. We didn't know. In fact, it was a surprise even to me when they told us. So September was up and down. We were just coming off the sadness and bereaving that family and the loss of that city employee, and then hit a high with the Money Magazine, and that kind of launched us forward. And then you talk about 2020. That was another high and low year as well. In March, the pandemic was emerging. The coronavirus was here, and nobody knew what to do. There wasn't a playbook, or the scientists and the medical professionals really didn't know how to combat it. Didn't have a vaccine. We didn't know. So we were just scrambling, doing the best we can. I remember Mayor Durrett saying, we're going to meet every day. And we're going to talk about what we can do to protect our community. And in the absence of leadership in Nashville or Washington, we're going to do the best we can. So we met every single day, including weekends. We met Saturdays and Sundays every single day for months, just kind of plotting our strategy on what we were going to do. And then, if you'll remember, in May of that year of 2020, George Floyd was murdered by a police officer, which created some tense times in communities all across our nation. And I can remember that June night, you and I went out to Windmill Boulevard, and we stood among the people who were concerned and scared. They didn't know. And we stood there in the middle of the night until all questions were answered, until they felt at least that they were being heard. People thought we were crazy. I know our police department thought, you could have given us warning, but we just did what God told us to do. We didn't go out there seeking media attention. In fact, nobody knew we were going. We just got up. I think it was 10 o'clock that night.
Yeah.
We just had all the grandkids there. If you remember a party at our house,
Yeah.
we were exhausted. But we saw what was happening, and we just picked up, got our shoes on, and went out there and just stood and listened and praying the whole time.
Well, I think, because I talked about this, honey, before, that we prayed Psalms 91.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we got there. And then literally when we put our foot on the ground, there was a shift in the atmosphere, because when God tells you to go, he's going to equip and protect you, and he's going to be the one to give you the words at the right time. And that was amazing to me.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a difficult time for our community. And it still is. I think that we have some hangover from that, where the division is kind of still there among races and genders and, even nationalities and cultures. But we're going to do our best to continue to bring people together, because everybody's voice is important. There's some in this community that want to divide us along different lines, ideological lines, like political party, or race, or gender, or even income. If you don't make a certain income, then you're not as good as I am, and that's just wrong. And we don't care who you are. You have an equal opportunity in this city, and we want prosperity in every neighborhood.
Yes.
Every neighborhood,
Yes.
not just for rich folks, but people deserve opportunities. We're going to make sure they have it.
Let's talk about the tornado, when we knew we had lost some families in the city, and how that was devastating.
Yeah, December 9th, 2023. So we're coming up on 2-year anniversary of a tornado that struck our city, and in the middle of the day. It was a Saturday. I'll never forget it. It was just a day like this past Saturday. It was kind of warm and pleasant. And then all of a sudden the storm grew and blew through our community. And that F2 tornado tore through our community and devastated 4 families, because they lost loved ones, including little 9-year-old Arlen Cody, little West Creek student, hardest funeral we've ever been to.
And he was protecting his sister.
Yeah. And so we just love on those families, those 4 families, because they didn't ask for that. They were just victims of this devastating storm. But we continue to rebuild and rebuild. And we've said all along, we're going to be there until they're all rebuilt and restored. And we've done all we can. And we're still there. We've still got teams on the ground helping them rebuild. We've got organizations out there building houses for people who may have had a trailer, mobile home destroyed, or we're in an apartment and they're looking for a home. So I'm just proud that we've been able to do that. Not anything you and I have done, it's the team out there that's doing it.
Well, you said it best. All the things that have happened for the city, it is the city employees that have made that happen.
1,400 of the best people anywhere. I'll put them up against anybody, anywhere, anytime. I used to, when I speak to groups, when I speak to groups, I'd have city employees in the audience. I would point them out, call them by name. And then suddenly when I did that, and I brag on them, they were being stolen by other organizations. They'd be recruited. So, I half jokingly said, I'm not going to call you by name and ask you to stand up anymore. I'll just say you're in the audience, because I don't want anybody to steal you. I want what's best for you. And I'm half kidding, but I don't want to lose you either. But we just had the best people. They're just the best people.
What is it that you learned through this season, honey? I know the excitement of being mayor of your hometown, because when you were younger, you had a T-shirt that your best friend Andy Richardson sent you that had Pitts for mayor.
Well, the story is, I tell often, growing up in my household, we around dinner, my sister and I with our parents would sit around and talk about current events, what was going on in the community, in the state, the nation. We knew who the president was, we knew who our elected representatives were, the mayor, city council, and something happened that we discussed at a city council meeting, that we discussed at dinner that night, and it kind of made me mad. And that was back when you could write a letter to the editor of the newspaper. Everybody read the newspaper. And so I fired off a letter, and it got published. and I think I was a senior in high school at Northwest High School, by the way, go Vikings. They got published, and I say it still embarrasses my mother to this day. I don't know if it does or not, but it makes for a good story. But a friend of mine gave me a T-shirt that said JEP for mayor, which are my initials. And Andy and I have a picture of us. I think we were 18 at the time, with that T-shirt on. I had the T-shirt on. He had another one on. And I use that illustration to especially students, to tell them, look, from that moment until I got elected mayor, it took me 43 years. So do not give up on your dreams. Don't give up on your dreams.
You know, honey, I have to stop and just also give a shout out to Chief Halford.
Oh my gosh.
Before we started, God gave us him. I call him our Joshua. And you talking about a gift. He's just a gift.
Oh, he is. James Andrew Halford II. Not junior, but the second. And, I can't imagine doing this job without him. He's just been a rock for us. Pardon me. He's just been a rock for us. He is so smart. He served in the Air Force, and people don't realize he's got a past to him that people don't really understand. He flew in the Air Force One wing, which is a fleet of aircraft that flew around the world. The dignitaries, elected officials, high ups. He flew secretaries of state and National Defense Council members for the president way back when, and he doesn't talk openly about it. But he's just got this past, that story that when he starts telling them, they're just fascinating. But he is so smart, and he's been so loyal to this city. He's just the best. He is the best.
Honey, I've seen you walk this season as mayor, and I've seen the ups and downs and the challenges, and I've seen you and us both just praying for different things for the city. But we could not have done it without the Lord's guidance.
Amen. Amen to that. I told the media when we announced, excuse me, this has been a wonderful season. It's been hard. It's been hard on us. We'd be bone tired coming home after a long day, and we got to change clothes and go out to an event and, make everybody feel special. And I've learned, I heard an old saying that said, when you walk into a room, do you say, there you are, or here I am? We've never walked into a room where we say, here I am. We always say, there you are, because we want to recognize the people and not have them recognize me or you. And it's always been about the people. But God has directed our steps. We planned and thought, and, we've come up with what we thought was what we want to do. But at the end, God directed our steps.
I say our scripture, we have several.
Yeah.
It's the Proverbs 3:5-6, that we truly have to trust him in this with all our heart, and trust that, because we want to be able to protect. I know you said, I just want to make sure the city employees are taken care of. And I think that was the thing in our heart. Like, I shared that with the department heads and you about the vision of a baton being passed. You couldn't see the hands or where it was going, but we know that God is the one that's going to protect them, keep them. But when we say family, they're truly our family.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's tell some really fun things. I was thinking this morning of just some fun things that you have done with the department heads. The one I remember most is in the boat races. What was that called down there?
Cardboard boat races. They used to be part of Riverfest.
Yeah.
And bless his heart, David Smith, who is he's our street department director. And if you know David loves to have a good time. And he would always engineer and build our cardboard boat. You could only use cardboard and duct tape. You couldn't use anything else to hold this thing together. It had to float. So that year, I think it was the year before it ended Riverfest.
But the one I remember is when Chief Freddie was in it with you. Y'all didn't even get.
Yeah, I mean, there were four.
Yeah.
You were required to have at least 4 people in your boat in this particular heat. And Chief Montgomery, Fire Rescue Chief Montgomery, was in there with us with two other city employees. And the way it was built, it wouldn't stay up. So,
And you learned something that not to put your billfold in your
learned
pocket.
something not to keep my billfold in my pocket. I thought there's no way I'm going in the water. But also learned not to open your mouth when you go into the river because, I didn't want a mouth full of river water. Um, uh, Chief Montgomery, I've never seen him move so quickly. He never got wet. He got one foot in the boat, it flipped,
Man,
and he was back on the dock.
He was. It was so funny. So, honey, what has been, I know that department heads is your joy, but what is just something that you'd like to share? David Smith, he made our grandkids Christmas last year on that big old float, and Bill and the team that put all that together was such a joy.
Well, when you start naming them,
you're gonna miss somebody.
You're gonna leave somebody out, but we could spend the balance of the day, and I could tell stories about each one of them. Every employee, not just department heads, but every employee, they're just the best people, just kind, and they just want to do their job. They don't want political interference. When I come around, I'm not the mayor to them, I hope. I'm just the guy that wants to come and encourage, see what they need, because I'll just show up. I'll go down to the garage with Billy Lee as our fleet manager and talk to them about how's it going, what do you need, you take care of yourself when it's hot outside. They're working in those unair conditioned bays. I want to make sure that fan is going, that misting fan, keeping them cool, making sure they take plenty of breaks. Those guys with the street department and parks and recreation, CDE and gas and water, when they're out in the ditches or on the lines in the cold weather, making sure they're being taken care of. That's our number one priority.
I think it's sweet though I said it on Friday, they're your dream team.
Yeah.
I feel like the group you have right now, they get along, they fit together. But God handpicked most of them that were sitting in that circle that day.
That's true. Very few, in fact, the vast majority of the department heads were not in their roles when we took office way back in 2019. We've had considerable turnover, retirements, and other things. But, God picked somebody out, brought it to us. We've had a couple of missteps where I didn't exactly get it right. But we finally got it right. And I looked around the room that day and I just thought every single one of those people give their heart and soul to this city. And so it's incumbent on us to make sure we recognize and value them.
We talked later that night, and I just said that what they did for us by each standing in line to come and, say something encouraging meant a lot to both of us and how much we appreciated that. And just to hear them say, Mayor, we've got your back, the endearing words were just so sweet. I know when we first came in office, when you didn't have a playbook. You didn't have anything.
No, it was, I don't think there's a class you can take. There's really nothing you can do to prepare you to become mayor. Because there's 1,000 different issues that come at you almost every single day. That's a little overstated, but there's hundreds of things that cross your desk where you have to make decisions. And often you're making it with about half the information you need. So you have to trust the people that are going to carry out the mission. And that's the city employees. Again, and go back to them. They're the best. I love to read. And there's a book. There was a book that was sent to me when I first got into the mayor's office. One of the first pieces of mail I got was from Charles Bone and Charles Robert Bone, father and son attorneys in Nashville, good friends of mine that I've known a long time. It's called Leadership in Turbulent Times, and it profiled 4 presidents who had turbulent times during their presidency. All of them did, but these 4 were the 2 Roosevelts, Teddy and Franklin, President Lyndon Johnson, and Abe Lincoln, President Lincoln. And I'll never forget, there was one quote in there that was attributed to President Lyndon Johnson. And he said, when the burdens of the presidency seem unusually heavy, I always remind myself, it could be worse. I could be a mayor. And so even he at the time understood the burden of being mayor of a city, because often you don't have the resources you want or need in order to issue or take care of a problem. You just have to do the best you can and be available. And basically at the tip of the spear, so to speak.
Honey, I loved it on the press release where you mentioned the things that you're going to be working on these 13 months.
Yeah, we've got, and again, just because we announced we weren't running for reelection doesn't mean we're going to load up. We've still got 13 months and 20 days um, that we're going to work, but we're going to make sure that we get as many things done and complete as possible and leave the city in a much better place than when we found it. We found it to be a good place. We're going to make sure that the next mayor uh, has a playbook. Whether they follow it or not, it's up to them, but we'll make sure they have a playbook.
Mm-hmm. So to those that are watching now, honey, and those that are watching later, you could not have done this without their support.
Oh, thank you to the citizens of my hometown, our hometown,
Mm-hmm.
for the honor of electing me, not just to the House of Representatives, 6 terms, which is, for a kid from New Providence, which is what I am, hard to imagine. But being mayor of a city, this city this big, there's no doubt we've grown. We've grown probably 40,000 people over this period of time, just because people are moving in here just every single day because they know what we know. This is the best place to live anywhere.
There's 2 things that for the next mayor that's going to come that's elected. I know the playbook you're going to have, which is the day-to-day things that were very important information. But as a Christian and as our faith is so important to us, what would be that one thing that you would say to them?
Well, we're Christian. We rely on God to kind of give us God to give us our direction and instructions every day. But you got to remember, not everybody's out there in the same situation. Not everybody believes the same way we do. Some people don't believe at all. And you got to be mayor of everybody. You can be mayor of just those people who agree with you, or just those people who are Christian. You've got to be mayor for everybody, and that's probably one of the biggest disappointments I've had. Some people don't understand why we embrace others of different faiths and the different cultures and communities. They want us to shun them or be negative toward them. God didn't command us to do. He said, love everybody. I don't want to like what they're doing, but they don't like what I'm doing.
I think that's probably been the biggest challenge this last go around on this last election. Because, I've said, honey, you could write a book on how to lead in a political environment where it's, either Republican or Democrat. But how sometimes you have to do things to win, you think, of the way things are done, in elections to discredit somebody or say things. I think the Lord has had to lead us through that. The people that we started off with ended up not being those, how the enemy can get in and, and people can do things that they try to discredit you. But yet God says, like he did, forgive them for they know not what they do.
Yeah.
And I think that was a challenge for us this last go around, was the people that we grew with and you helped as a legislature. And then to see, a disgrumbling hearts. I think that was tough for me.
Well, people let you down every single time. I don't care who it is.
Mm-hmm.
God will never let you down. But people are going to let you down. That's why you don't put your faith in man. You put your faith in what God has for you or God does for you. But yeah, people have been some. But I don't want this season that we've been through for us to leave being bitter or offended, because offense is not our portion, as we would say. I don't want us to be bitter. I want us to be happy that we helped as many people. We did everything we could to help people. I
think that was the little message God gave: forgive, release, and let go.
Yeah.
I think that's where that little sermonette came from, that God's the judge. Just to forgive and just pray. Because anytime we see fruit that's not of God, our goal is to pray for those.
That's right.
Well, I'm just excited, honey, that you are here today, and just to be able to say thank you to the community for giving you the opportunity they did, and just to be praying for us these next 13 months and 20 days.
That's right.
And just to continue to pray for the next person that God's going to put in this position. I love you very much. I'm proud of you. You said it to your department heads, you had brown hair when you came in, and now it's all gray.
That's okay.
And I cover my gray, so you can't see mine.
That's okay.
Yeah, but it was just honor to be able to walk this journey with you, darling. And just to know that I got to see the city in a different light. You know, it's easy to do your own thing every day, but when you go and meet great people all across this community, and that was your heart to make everybody feel special.
Yeah, and I tell people, that's the beauty of running for office, because you meet people when you run for office you wouldn't have ordinarily got to meet. When you knock on their door, or you go to events in their neighborhood or at their church or in their organization, their group, you get to meet them. And we've met people that we wouldn't have gotten to meet otherwise. We've made lasting friendships. You know, I think about LaVon Bracy, you know, and just how special she and the family are to us. So yeah, it's really been the best part of this journey. And you know, I listen to a lot of podcasts, you know, but this is my favorite.
Thank
So
you, sweetheart.
because you tell the truth, but you do it in love and you teach us, and you have a gift for that.
Thank you, darling. And I also want to say this too. Thank you for your support with the women of Clarksville, because you started it out that way. We had a luncheon with all the women, and you wanted to hear their voice.
Yeah, at the old Riverview Inn before it converted to the Doubletree downtown. Back in 2018, you had a vision of getting the women together to talk about, hey, what are your dreams for your family in this city? And you got women together of all colors, of all cultures, neighborhoods. It didn't matter. And I remember looking around that room, that meeting room that day, and it was just amazing. The women who came together just wanted to share their heart. What were their dreams and desires for their family? And that was the topic. And that launched the Women of Clarksville. Mm-hmm. And then you had monthly or every other month events. You brought them together, and you're still doing it. So thank you for walking this journey with me.
Well, you're sweet, darling, but you were 100% behind it. You were glad when we finally got the committee together, because it was just me and you.
It's just you and me setting
It's kind of hard, but
setting up chairs and serving food.
You were glad when the committee came together. Well, honey, I love you very much. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We just wanted to say thank you to you, because my husband couldn't have served as mayor if it hadn't been for you, for trusting and voting for him to do what he needs to do. We are committed from Friday to now and to the end of 13 months and 20 days to be praying for the next person that's going to come in this office. And we just pray that they will hear God's heart, and I pray that they will let God lead them. And because you can't go wrong when you let the Lord lead you. God bless you, John. I pray for you already this morning and for our city. And go out and have an amazing day.
And happy Veterans Day tomorrow to all our veterans. God bless you and your family for your service.
Yes. And we love you all very, very much.
Yes.